Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the implications for Northern Ireland, including the political stability implications of Trump's tariffs. See, there was a time when you would have thought the universal cross-party support for Ireland in America would help avoid a major clash, but with the way Trump treated Michael Knighton in the Oval Office earlier this week, I'm not so sure now. But first, for daily political commentary, please hit the subscribe button to stay notified. So just a very brief background to help us understand potential issues here. The Northern Ireland peace process was built upon structures which existed in the late 90s and took advantage of the fact that we had a full free movement agreement between the UK and Ireland, which predates EU membership, also a shared common market and customs area as a result of that EU membership. The extreme Tory Brexit shattered two of those pillars of the peace process. The resulting fix required a few fudges. And even those fudges created political tensions in Northern Ireland, though ironically the most tense with the DUP, who campaigned for and enabled that Tory Brexit. But tensions have now calmed down to a bit of a simmer, and in actual fact, as Rishi Sunak correctly identified a couple of years ago, it ended up giving Northern Ireland a bit of an economic advantage. Although there are trade frictions on imports from Britain, they can export to Britain freely and also to the single market freely. The only place in the world which can export to both markets hassle-free. But Trump threatens that delicate balance. So far, Trump's trade war has taken the form of equalised 25% tariffs on steel and aluminium on all imports into America. That means he's raised tariffs on those products for both the EU and the UK at the same time by the same amount. In other words, so far at least, the UK have not dodged any tariffs fired the EU's way. However, the UK hasn't raised any retaliatory tariffs. Doesn't make sense in our case. Although these Trump tariffs are bad for our already beleaguered steel industry, a couple of things to bear in mind. First, Labour's plans for the steel industry would mitigate the damage anyway over the next few years, although we'd still rather not have them. Second, those exports aren't really very much compared to our overall trade with the USA, not worth the UK making a fuss about. But the EU have made a fuss. It's not only important enough for them to do so, but they have the clout to punch back. So Trump is threatening an escalation with the EU, and this is all going to prove very awkward for Northern Ireland. See, it would mean that whatever products are targeted, assuming it's just for the EU, not the UK, will have to pay the tariffs if they're exported from or imported to Northern Ireland, but not Britain. So consider this. The DUP have been very shouty about the Brexit they enabled, and that was when it gave Northern Ireland a competitive advantage. Imagine how they might react if suddenly the post-Brexit arrangements were giving them a disadvantage. Now, Northern Ireland is already going to be facing problems because the tariffs work both ways. For example, if Northern Ireland imports any from the USA, which is affected by the EU's retaliatory tariffs, Northern Ireland businesses will have to pay extra for those products compared to a business in Britain importing the same products. So immediately Trump's trade war has created a competitive disadvantage for Northern Ireland compared to Britain, where previously the advantages of the post-Brexit arrangements had been exclusively in Northern Ireland's favour. But the situation will just get worse if Trump escalates and applies additional tariffs on the EU, but not the UK. Now, it is entirely possible for Trump to raise tariffs on EU goods without affecting Northern Ireland. For example, Trump has threatened 200% tariffs on alcohol. If that were more targeted, he could impose those tariffs on products which aren't produced by or exported from Northern Ireland. Tariffs on champagne, for example, not likely to concern the Northern Ireland Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And before this week, I could see that happening. The Irish lobby, very powerful in America, a good chunk of the population thinking they're Irish, despite I'm not actually sure they could point to the country on a map. Although we talk about the special relationship between the UK and the USA, it's absolute bollocks. The countries with a genuinely special relationship are Israel and Ireland. It might only be Israel now, because there were already tensions between Trump and the Irish government, I think, in particular around Israel's invasion of Gaza. But Trump decided to have a pop at Ireland's tax break policies, which have attracted American corporations to base themselves in Ireland. Trump said that Ireland was taking advantage of the US. He was a little bit more diplomatic in his language than with other countries, but it was nonetheless a pretty rude display when hosting the Irish Prime Minister. Martin tried to push back by pointing out that there are loads of Irish companies based in America too, creating jobs there. But what emerged for me was a US president showing that he was absolutely fine to consider Ireland just as much a target as anyone else who got in the way of his economic fantasies. So what about these tariffs? Well, if Trump applies tariffs on the EU but not the UK, and those tariffs affect products which Northern Ireland exports to the USA, then there's the risk of an almighty blow up from the DUP. That threatens political stability again. I'm not quite sure what the DUP will demand of the Westminster government. Presumably that Starmer demands that Trump put the same tariffs on the UK to even things out, I don't know. But belly aching is likely to occur. So with the Irish lobby being very influential in America, I would have assumed that even Republicans would demand that Trump is careful in how he approaches his tariffs with the EU, which he could do, he could easily do. Northern Ireland only exports so many products to the US and only imports so many as well. But with Trump happy to needle the Irish Prime Minister during what is normally the annual St. Patrick's Day show of friendship and solidarity, I'm not so sure. Trump's pointless trade war has already created a problem for Northern Ireland, where Brexit tensions could rise again. An escalated trade war with the EU, which does not include the UK, only makes things worse. And the most maddening thing about this entire issue is that Trump is applying these tariffs because he has this mad idea that import taxes can replace income tax in America. This is like saying all taxation can effectively come from sales taxes, because that's sort of what tariffs are in a way. But this is insane. I mean, I've tried to look it up. I think the highest sales tax in America is about 10%. In the UK, it's 20%. So that's literally double the highest rate in America. Yet we only raise a small proportion of our taxes from this. The idea that Trump could replace income tax with import tax seems mathematically insane. So it's not just that Trump is threatening the peace process, something America used to take seriously. It's that he's doing it based on a complete fantasy. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, please click the like button and subscribe for further content. If you'd like to support the channel further, you click the join button for memberships. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.